writing music for people who need healing. Jesus didn't come for the people who already were like, you know, good. He came for the people who were in their fucking the shittiest moments of their life. People who were like about to get stoned to death. People who, you know, committed adultery. People who were drunks. Like people who were messy. But like that's where the biggest miracles happen. The biggest healing and breakthroughs happen in those moments. And like I'm here to write music for people who are in the fucking trenches who need a fucking breakthrough. Like that's who I'm going after, you know, and sometimes that's me. Sometimes I write songs that I need healing.
Sara Benyo, welcome to the Underground Society podcast again.
Second time's a
Takes
charm.
you.
Beautiful.
Where we started earlier was the fact that we knew Emma, and that's kind of how we met each other. Was just I was on her podcast. We did our collab a few months ago, and then you reached out to me shortly after that. But that's not the only person that we know in common. Nick Cherwink, my life coach, your life coach, our life coach. We're in a coaching program with him right now. And the other day you brought up a huge win for you, your set at Breakaway Music Festival. I just wanted to know, kind of congratulate you, first of all, on that being like probably your biggest set so far.
Yeah, oh my God. It was absolutely incredible. I had such a great time. Like we were saying, it was the first time I've ever like played a show where I've had people wearing my merch.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I knew they were there for me. So that was just like so special, like seeing them holding like the pashminas over the rail and like screaming like, "We love you!" Like, "Sarah, oh my God, you look so great!" Like it was like so awesome. So it was so cool. I've played EDC Orlando the past 2 years, and I've been really trying to grow myself in the Florida market. And it was just one of those moments where it's like, okay, everything that I'm doing is paying off. So very grateful.
Very cool. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
What do you think? What aspects of your project? First of all, how long have you been an artist? I know it's been like majority of your life. You've been a singer, and you've always been a part of it. But when did you actually like dive into your career?
Yeah. Oh, well, EDM specifically, I started doing it around 2017, 2018. I started off as a EDM vocalist only and not a DJ. But before that, I was in the music industry as like in bands. Like I was doing indie psych rock bands and the singer-songwriter stuff. And
originally you are from Nashville. So
yes.
Does make a lot of sense from your roots there. What aspects do you think throughout your career from starting in 2017 and 2018 have you specifically worked on, and what do you think went into like getting a performance or getting a crowd reaction or fans showing up to a set like that? What aspects of your project do you think have finally, or maybe had some breakthroughs with that finally like made that happen?
Gosh, I mean, it's all a process, and it's all like I started when I was like really young, so I feel like it's just been a process of me. I don't know. It's like I've always had a business mind in addition to an artist mind, a mentality. So I feel like I've really been able to leverage that to my advantage, which has obviously paid off. When I first started doing EDM vocals, there was no really shows in Nashville where I really fit in. There was pop shows, but there wasn't,
the
EDM vocalist shows. Yeah. And then there was like DJs and like local DJ shows. And like, while I like, they were kind enough to kind of like throw me in the middle of them DJing, and like I'd have a backup DJ and sing and do my thing, and they'd go back to DJing. There was no place. So like, for instance, one thing I did is I literally like would book my own shows where I literally found all the other EDM vocalists in Nashville and put together a show, and did that actually quite a few times. I actually like booked my whole and planned my whole EP release show back in 2019 and sold it out on a night where like 2 to 3 other EDM acts were playing. So I'm very proud of that. So I just kind of like have always been a go-getter. If there's not a way, I'm going to make a way. I'm going to find a way. And I care a lot about like my fans and connection. And I feel like really taking that extra mile as an artist to really connect with my fans, in addition to, really leveraging opportunities and making my own opportunities, has really helped me.
Yeah, that's super cool. I think it's awesome when people just like go out and make it happen, when they're not like waiting on the opportunity to come or whatever. You're like, you went out and actually threw your own show. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I've always had to. You know, I grew up in a really small rural town. I was just watching a video of an artist my manager just picked up at Red Rocks, and he's like 17, and it like panned to the crowd, and it's like all these high school kids who are like there to support him. And I'm like, I would have given anything to have raves when I was like
Yeah.
this age, but I was literally in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, so I kept having to like make my way and find my
Right.
way and do my thing. So yeah,
So how
anyways.
did you find, I mean, I'm probably maybe partially the internet, obviously, but like outside of that, how did you find EDM, and what called you or what attracted you to want to do that instead of like what you were already involved in?
hmm Gosh, I've always loved all kinds of music. It's probably the ADHD. Like
Same.
I love pop. I love EDM. I
Yeah.
love rap. I like country. I like, you know, singer-songwriter stuff. There's nothing that I don't like. I feel like I love so much music. I first discovered EDM when my 9-year-old best friend and I would go play Dance Dance Revolution in her basement. Like that was like my
That
true
makes sense. Yeah.
intro.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like when iTunes radio was a thing, like my dad and I would like listen to like, I have a French background. I'm like partially French. So we would like put on like, he would call it like Paris underground music, which was just like
Mm.
trance, like in the house.
Yeah.
But that was like my first intro.
That's super cool. My parents liked. I grew up with kind of similar roots and listened to all different things: 80s rock, country, everything, R&B. But it was the one genre that they didn't really listen to was electronic. And then now I felt like when I found it, it was like, oh, I can make this like my thing. Like my parent, like it wasn't shown to me. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my dad didn't really show it to me. My dad was just has always been the person where he's always really supportive of me, and if there's something that I like, he like wants to understand it and also support me in that. So like once I kind of started listening to it, like he would put it on too. So I love
Okay.
him.
Okay.
He's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. That's dope.
Yeah, yeah, he still does that now. Like come home and see him like cleaning the house to like Zed's Dead or like Subtronics, just trying to understand the
That's
culture
super
and
cool.
loves it. But yeah, that the way I really discovered it was there was this scene girl that I loved who made YouTube videos, and she put together some like I don't even know if MacBook Pros were a thing
Mm.
then. Like we're talking like
Probably like
20
original Mac computers.
2009, I don't know, like 2008, 2009. But she like put together this like little YouTube video of like all of her favorite songs, and she had like Nero, like This Way,
Okay. Yeah.
Sierra, Leah, or Mount Eden, yeah. And then Ghosts and Stuff by Dead Mouse. And I remember
Yeah.
hearing
Yeah.
this and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I had always kind of like grown up like listening to electronic music and then Skrillex in like 2012. Like it's always been a part of my music taste. But when I was really deciding on what direction I wanted to go musically, I knew that I loved the energy in electronic music and just the vibe of festivals and how happy, and I love dancing. I love just like
Yeah.
feeling free, and that was really what drew me to that genre.
That's very cool. Yeah, talking about just dancing and expressing yourself. Another way that you express yourself is through fashion. I know that's a big, I guess, brand pillar. Another big brand pillar for you is the fashion stuff. What does that look like for you in your brand? And have you always incorporated that? Was there a time that you didn't? And when did that start? Or how have you kind of incorporated that?
Yeah, it's always been a part of me, honestly. I would get bullied for it, honestly, in middle school, but I would say like Lady Gaga, she gets brought up in every single interview I do, but she has been such
She is
a
a
huge
boss of a
inspiration for
woman. Oh
me.
my goodness.
Yeah, and I remember like her like music videos and just everything she did was just larger than life, and I was like, this bitch is fucking cool. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this podcast,
Yeah,
but
you're good.
like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like I'm just like was so enamored by her, and that really like I'm like I felt so seen, but it's always been a part of me, really. Like high school, middle school, go ask anyone. They're like, oh, yes, Sarah's always been like crazy with her fashion and her
yeah.
style. And so it really is just who I am. And I love to see it like blossom, you know, as I continue to grow as an artist.
That's cool. I think that's something that definitely can set you apart. You see, like, I think a good example of someone who has done a really good job at this, who is also like huge touring level, is like Halion. She's done a good job. She's always like has like cool, fashionable, like or even like the big events. She'll have like really fancy dresses or whatever on.
Yes, I love it.
How do you use I guess, how do you differentiate yourself when it comes to fashion compared to like maybe other some of the other female artists in our industry?
I mean, I think just being myself
Yeah.
really is what makes me different. I don't know very many females. I know now like more females who are more fashion forward in their projects. Like I think Sophie Tucker is one of those artists. I just saw today where she put out a music video with like she's wearing a bread outfit. I'm like, I love this so much. But I think for the most part, 99% of female DJs are still dressing pretty casually.
Yeah.
So I just think by having any sort of sense of style fashion is like automatically going to set you apart.
I feel like every at least for the males, males are already not as fashionable as women, but especially for like the male rhythm artist, everyone dresses the exact same.
Yeah, they do. But what's been so interesting too is I think like we're in an interesting place culturally where I do feel like subconsciously women at first felt like they had to more like masculinize themselves in a male dominated industry.
And not to call people out, but yeah, you even see like for me at least, the first person who came to mind was like Alice in Wonderland, the big T, the not really girly. Like it's her look and it works beautifully, but it was a little bit more of like not the traditional woman look.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love a good baggy t-shirt? Like
Right,
there's
right.
times where I'm like, damn, I don't want to dress up like
Yeah.
I'm as a woman, I'm on my period. I don't feel like doing this. I'm
Or
bloated,
your
like,
5, 6 a.m. flights that you have to take. Yeah, you're not
yeah,
getting it.
sometimes you
Yeah.
just want to chill, but it is definitely I feel like is sometimes subconsciously you trying to be accepted in EDM because like it's crazy like when you do make yourself more feminine you could say like you're automatically seen as not a DJ backstage or not as taken as seriously and I just think that's so weird compared to other genres because with pop stars or rappers or whoever any
Mm,
other genre you dress however you want to dress and no one
right,
really
right,
questions
right.
you but in EDM, it's one of those things where it's like if you are more women presenting, you're like automatically like, oh, they're just getting booked because they're hot. So it's like I feel like all these women feel like they have to make themselves not hot to be taken seriously, which is just crazy.
Yeah, that is a. I actually haven't really even thought about that in the past, but it's interesting coming from. Obviously, I'm not a woman in the industry, but coming from you, it gives me a different perspective about fashion. 'Cause I think back about. I think that's fashion in general is such an interesting topic in EDM because you think back to like the 80s and 90s, like there's been fashion and style trends throughout the years, and it almost seems like it's become more and more, yeah, bland or I don't know. Maybe it's just because we see it all the time, but like I remember back in like the '80s, or like the bell bottom pants and like the weird, or like even the. Have you ever seen Insomniac Ltd. or their like clothing company that like
Yeah.
is like paint and like '80s kind of '90s inspired clothing? Like I think back to that kind of stuff, and I'm like, how did I get from that to what we wear now? Just like black clothes and like I don't know. I feel like it's boring now.
Yeah, yeah. It's such an interesting topic, and it's like at the end of the day, I am super supportive of people expressing themselves authentically, whatever that looks like. But I do think there is a whole level of like subconsciously doing that to feel accepted
Yeah,
or to, I don't know, people, like I said, I hate to say it, but it's like very sexist. Like again, if
yeah.
you're if you're dressed more feminine, like you're definitely more subject to like sexism, especially in EDM. It's just crazy.
You started as a vocalist. You started as a songwriter. And now you're transitioning. Obviously, now that you're moving further and further into the EDM world, you're producing, you're DJing, you're actually having your performing live sense as Sara Benyo. How has that transition been into producing, and how do you find balance there? How do you incorporate both sides into the Sara Benyo project?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I've been producing since I was 17. I've had a DAW,
Oh,
since
okay. So
then.
it's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while, but it's not something that I've like, full-fledged incorporated into my project. It's been interesting for me because I never have come out of the gate like full-fledged doing everything. It's like, okay, I started off singing and like singing on other people's tracks only, and then doing just live sets. And now I'm singing and DJing, and now I'm singing, DJing, and producing.
Right.
So it's been like pretty cool, but it's like I could already do these things. Now I'm just incorporating them into my project because even before I started DJing, in my like my sets, I was DJing college bars. Even though I was still performing live, like
Right.
live sets as a EDM artist, I was still DJing in the background. So I knew that if I was going to be an EDM vocalist, that again, this is where my like business marketing brain comes in. Is it's like, okay, well, you want to. I'm like, well, your target demographic is people who like EDM, and all of these people go to festivals that they're like pretty much only DJs. So if you want to put yourself in the correct demographic, then you need to DJ. And I already love DJing, so that wasn't like a big deal to me. But I was like, okay, makes sense. So like,
Yeah.
I could do these live shows, but like I'm not really putting myself in the right environment. So I wanted to put myself in the right environment to thrive, get myself in front of the right listeners. So that was the biggest like aha contributing factor when I first started DJing or bringing that into my project, you could say. With producing, it's like I've always been to producing just on my own for fun. I love creating. I just love the art of composition itself as a songwriter. Like I'm not only a songwriter lyrically, but I'm a songwriter like instrumentally. And honestly, I would say like the biggest fueling factor for me, just like releasing originals now where I am producing them, is just, I hate to say it, but like vocalists just don't get a lot of respect or as much respect as someone who is a producer leaning electronic artist. And so, I will completely bust my ass on my song that I will work with another producer, but like I will get very little credit on the back end, or it's very, very tough sometimes with teams internally to really just value the vocalist. So it's like, damn, well, why did I just rip my heart out and like give you this song that like actually means so much to me, that is like coming from a very real, raw, vulnerable place that should be my song, but I'm giving it to you and like you don't deserve it. So it's like if you can't even respect me like as a vocalist and like, just I don't know. I'm not gonna get too much into it. But it's like, okay, well fine, like these are my stories to tell and I'm going to bring them to life. And that's not that I'm gonna stop collaborating with other people.
Right.
But I just think it's time for like me to like shine as me and
Well, if you have the skills,
not keep getting,
especially maybe producing
yeah.
since you're 17, like you know how to DJ, anyone can kind of pick up DJing. So producing and vocalist, like I think to a certain degree, not that you're more talented, but you have a fuller package than just being a producer, than just knowing how to work a DAW, and been and like tour and play live sets as a DJ. Like you can sing live. You have a good voice. You know how to incorporate that. You can actually tell a story through music instead of just making a cool sound. So
Exactly. And I mean, I always wanted to be known first and foremost as a singer, and I really wanted to make sure I established that, which is like not typical in EDM. But
yeah,
I've always had this vision of when I first wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a pop artist. And I still love pop. Like, I still love, like, when I say pop, I don't mean like bubblegum pop. I mean like live performance,
right,
choreography,
right,
just
right.
you performing in front of a stage, connecting with your fans, like having this whole world around your project. I've always seen myself incorporating that world with dance music. And
Which would be
so, if
sick
you,
because I've never seen anyone really successfully truly do that. Like actually, like a pop performance. Like if I was gonna go see someone who popped in my head who I've seen in my life, Justin Timberlake, I would consider him pop. Great dancer, great performer, great. He talks to the crowd well in between songs, like that mixed with like what I love about EDM and mixing and like that, like DJing and stuff. Like
yeah,
combining the great elements about both and making one solid performance sounds like what you're kind of striving for.
Exactly. And I don't want to like give my like secrets and visions away, but like
Yeah.
what you're implying is like what my goals are, and I'm gonna be the person to do it for sure.
That's dope. I can't wait to see you and you go down that route. Something that came up for
Thank
me when
you.
you were talking about that was collaboration. I know you've collaborated with some people that I'm like friends with, Freaky for an example. What does that look like when
Love
you're
them.
sitting down and working with a different, another producer? And how involved are you in the producing side when you are, the vocalist on the song? And what does that look like? Or is it different per person?
Yeah, I would say it's different per person. Each project is different. Everyone has their own flow and way they like to do things. I am primarily involved in the vocal production on songs that I collaborate with other people, but I do have I do executive produce and give my input. And, if there's something that I'm like, this is too long or too short, or we need to extend this here, put the vocals here, like I am definitely doing that. But a lot of times when producers reach out to me, they already have like the track pretty much established. So I'm handling the production in other ways.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was just curious because I know, like I said, you worked with Freaky, and I was like, how does that work? And in that case, I guess since I asking primarily about that, what did that look like working with him?
Yeah, so let's see, we've actually worked together 2 times now.
Okay.
So
his whole team, left brain, and his whole team all the people that surround him too, great people.
I love him.
Yeah.
He like makes such like his melodic stuff is honestly my favorite. Every time that he sends me a melodic track, I write like the most meaningful song ever.
That's dope.
But with him, like he pretty much sent me just the instrumental pretty much already done, and I wrote to it. Mm-hmm.
Bouncing off of that onto the next kind of topic here. You did an interview with Lizzie Jane. She's been on the show as well. It's been
my girl.
Couple years now, but yeah, I love her. Such a cool person. But you guys are talking, you brought up being authentically yourself. What does that look like, and why have you, I guess, struggled with it in the past?
To answer the first part, what does it look like?
Yeah.
It really just means for me personally to really embrace and embody all of the qualities that make me me, and really like loving myself for them, and really pushing past the fear of like what other people think or like what other people's perceptions are.
That was a struggle for me for a long time too, so I feel it.
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up as a people pleaser. I still think I have I'm a recovering people pleaser. I definitely like have way stronger boundaries now.
Yeah.
But I have like social anxiety, but I'm like way more healed now. I'm not perfect, but like when I was a kid, it was like really, really bad. And like I had undiagnosed ADHD that like somehow slipped under my parents' radar totally. But like with that, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like a lot of people who have ADHD have this thing called RSD, which is like rejection sensitivity. So like you're even more sensitive to how people perceive you or like any sort of rejection. So that makes you more of a people pleaser. And so when you mix that,
I've said this in the past, but I relate with a lot of stories and things that people with ADHD have told me about. And I think I might also can relate with that to a certain degree. So I don't know if I'm undiagnosed, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm a sensitive baby. I'm not going to lie.
But I also feel that like rejection thing, I definitely have for my entire life. I'm finally like, I didn't even realize it for the longest time. And I've talked about this a lot, but realizing like that I even cared about my parents saw it in me and they're like, you got to stop caring about what other people think about you. And I was like, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, like I hit a certain age and I was like, oh, this is like certain things started to pop up and I was like, oh, I am caring. This is a prime example of that coming. And I finally started seeing it and I was actually able to like then work on it. But yeah, for a long time, I definitely cared so much and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy once you like start looking backwards, like over your life, you're like, oh, there it was the whole time. I had no idea. Why didn't anybody tell me?
Yep.
But yeah. I mean, like, there's between like, being a people pleaser and having anxiety and all these things that are probably stemming from that, but also growing up in a really small, rural, conservative, judgmental town.
Same here.
Where
my dad's a farmer.
You to like, yeah. So it's like, I love me a good farm. Don't get me wrong, but like, you're like expected to wear like Hollister and Sperry's and go to church, and like, you know, you can't be gay, you can't have your hair dyed, you can't believe in gay marriage. Like, it's just like, and then you got me, and it's like, I got like I just did not fit in. Like, I didn't fit in with my whole family on my mom's side. I've always been the black sheep. I've never fit into anything conventionally. I actually got like bullied, you know, in middle school pretty heavily by teachers.
That's crazy. Other students, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But teachers, that's crazy.
Yeah. So being authentic to me is like honestly been a part of my own healing journey. And it's like, you know, that's why I resonated with Lady Gaga so much, because she was like, yeah, and she was just like singing Born This Way, you know, really accepting of everyone. I resonated with her so much. So it's been a huge part of my journey of just, you know, even with working with Nick, like I feel like I've become more of myself than I ever have in the past 4 months.
Shout out to that guy.
Dude, he is an angel walking on this planet. If you're an artist listening to this, go work with Nick Turing.
Yes, and listen to his podcast, Headliner Mindset. No free promo on this podcast except for Nick Turing.
Yeah, literally. 100%.
What other aspects, I guess, or what specific aspects were you afraid to put out into the world once you became an artist? And like, what aspects of your brand that now stands as your brand did it take a minute to develop, and were you maybe nervous about putting out there into the public?
I just think it's like, it's all internal, just like posting without fear, really. Like, just posting without fear. I think the biggest thing I've realized like in the past 6 months is like, it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there online, like to post content and to like fearlessly post content. But most people are pushing through the fear. And I think that the biggest thing that I have really taken from working with Nick was, I still remember it as clear as day, as we were talking about this, you know, just being an artist, you have to put yourself there, put yourself out there so much. I mean, you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. You're literally like putting your soul out there in your music for people to perceive. And
that's how people connect with you. Like,
exactly. Exactly. And it's like, well, if I'm not being myself, like, how can people even know to resonate with me?
You know, my fans, they won't even really know you at that point. Yeah.
Exactly. They can't find what they're looking for. But I remember him saying, like, you don't like wake up one day and you're not like, okay, when I'm confident, I'm going to do this and then it'll be okay. He was like,
confidence is built along the way.
Yeah, he was like, confidence is built by choosing courage in the face of fear over and over and over again. And I'm like, damn, that is a really good word. So just like learning to be courageous has been such a huge thing, pushing through that fear, pushing through that uncomfortability.
Right. Yeah. I relate with that just so entirely much so, because even just to posting things, that something as simple as that, like my Instagram story, just take that for a very small piece of the content that I post as overall, but just Instagram story, personal Instagram story, people who follow me, who are friends of mine, who are family of mine. I was so scared to just like even just like post about like God, or post about like, for a while, like I love wearing Crocs, and I like love like that whole culture of things, and posting about Crocs became a thing on my Instagram story. But just like, and like younger me would have never, I would have been like embarrassed about that kind of stuff. And it just, all of a sudden you're like, yep, I'm not going to care anymore. And I felt like the more that I did that, the less and less like I saw people like engaging with it, or saw people like relating with it, or, you know, they've experienced something similar to that. And they would like, my DMs would actually start moving, and I'd get into conversations I never knew that I would have with people. So it's crazy what happens when you actually just put yourself out there.
I know. And that honestly like jogged my brain. Is like, I feel like so much of it has been like unlearning for me, because, you know, when you do have ADHD, or you are neurodivergent, so much of your life is like built around masking yourself to feel normal.
Yep.
You know, or to not feel shame. So like, you've hidden all of these parts of yourself just to seem normal and to fit into society. And so like, a lot of this journey is just like unmasking all of this. And it's like, this is who I am. Like Like, I don't care if you think I'm crazy or silly. Like,
Yep.
this is like, I'm like spiritual and I'm a fucking goofball. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
just going to put that out there. And then the other people, like, I had a girl, like, I love her. She's like one of my favorite fans now, but she's like, I love how you're just like, you're like loving and spiritual and like you post all this healing stuff and you're also just like posting all these memes and being super silly. Like, I'm so here for your energy. They're like, it feels so authentic and like I really resonate with it. But I'm like, that's why you do it, because
Yeah.
like there's other people like you that are like, oh my God, there is someone like me. There you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm like this and I'm like this. So
yeah.
that's when you know you're like, oh, like you said, the engagement, people start DMing you. It's like, okay, you're on the right path. Like, you're meant to be you for a reason. Like, God made you the way that you are for
Speaking
a reason.
of, now that we've brought it up, speaking of God, and I was going to say, been talking about judgment a lot, and something I talked about on our new series, Faithful Frequencies, that we've been doing. We've only had one episode of, but we're going to make it into a series. I brought up the fact that, like, in my opinion, and, you know, we both have a belief in God and stuff, but in my opinion, like, all the judgment and stuff, part of that for me was one day I realized I was like, God truly is the only one who can judge me. Like, forget everyone else's opinion. Whose opinion really matters in the grand scheme of things? God. So is he really going to care that I like Crocs and like NASCAR and random nerdy shit that no one probably cares about? But like, is he going to care? Like, he's probably going to love me even more. Like, he made me to do that. So
yeah, it's like he's not even going to judge you because he made you that way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like he loved, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
What does that look like? Your spirituality, and I know it's another big pillar of your brand, but what does that look like for you, and how do you practice that in your life?
Oh, it's something I don't really, have the chance to really dive into on most podcast episodes, but it's something that is
well, in
like
this one, that's what we like talking about. So feel free.
So honestly, it is such a big part of my project. Like, I feel like I kind of keep it to myself, but like in every decision I make and everything I do, like God is at the center. And I don't even say that in like a super Christian-y way, even though I did grow up Christian and I still like hold a lot of those beliefs to my heart. But my faith is like definitely more expanded. But like God, universe, just spirituality in general, like there's so many ways I practice it, and like it is just so like it's who I am. Like I can't imagine my project without it, honestly. It's definitely been more of an internal thing for me in like decision making, but like I've been learning more and more ways that feel authentic to me, that I am like slowly bringing that to light throughout my project and that element into it. So I'm very excited.
What ways have you found?
It's not even like you have to be like, bam, God. It's just like
Definitely
loving people. It's like, it's healing people through your lyrics. And
I forgot who said it, but I heard someone say the other day that like one of the best ways to like lead someone to that is not even by talking about it, literally just by setting the example that you're called to set, and leading by example.
Yeah,
when
you're just embodying light, and we're all humans. We're not perfect, but when you're just doing your best and like truly living, in light and love, and you try to keep that at the center of everything you do, like God is in everything. And I think people can find healing in God. Like, whether people realize it or not, music festivals are such a spiritual experience.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I was very intrigued by you saying that before the interview. Go into depth of what you mean by that, because I have felt similarly while at festivals.
So I grew up Christian. I grew up non-denominational, and I grew up leading worship when I was 14 to the time I was about 21 or so, 20, 21. So like 7, 8 years of my life. But I never truly had a deep, crazy, intense, like fully deep connection to God until I started leading worship. And it was definitely a God thing that I even did that, because again, when I was younger, I was shy, like didn't talk to anybody. I didn't even my dad had to drag me down to like the worship team. Like I wasn't even really wanting to go to church. I was like super disinterested. Like I didn't care. I thought it was boring. My dad
like most kids
took me to a church and he's like, you're going to try this. Like you are going to go, like go be with the kids, like go talk. Like literally it was like, you have to not be shy. Like,
yeah.
So anyways, like these two random kids were like, oh, you play piano? Like, do you want to lead worship? Like, come to me. And little did I know that would just change my life forever. So I remember like playing and like feeling this, you know, if you could say the Holy Spirit, if you will, like
right.
literally this energetic change that was happening in a room when you're truly just in that flow state of like being connected through music. For me as a musician, like just experiencing music, I think anybody who loves music can feel that. So
100%. Yeah, I was going to say, I
it's
don't
just like,
perform or I'm not an artist myself, but I 100% relate to that feeling of just like actually being in the crowd. Or I've even had moments where like I've been at the early parts of my raving career or whatever, I was like embarrassed to dance around people. And I've had similar feelings like that with like worshiping at church. But once you do, it's like you're completely right. You do have that like energetic, like you feel better by doing it.
yeah. And I always like would feel the most connected to the churches where you can tell that it's just like so authentic, that they are
Yeah.
just like design connection with God, that there is this like, you just have to experience it. If you've never experienced it, it's hard to explain, but if you know, if you've experienced it, then you know what I'm talking about, that there is a tangible energy that like literally enters the room and you are just in awe, in the same way people are holding their hands up like this at a festival singing and they're closing their eyes and they're just taking it all in. That is literally the same thing as connecting to God, and they have no idea, or some do have an idea. You know,
Yeah.
everyone's
I've been,
relationship to God is different.
because I am such a Christian. I'm sure you've maybe had thoughts like this too. But even like while I'm at a festival, just like actually sitting there, like we were always told, especially through Nick again, to like practice gratitude and stuff. But my gratitude, whenever I'm thankful for something, I'm always thankful to God because He's the one that I believe provides, you know, everything for us. So well, I've been in festival like where I'm just so grateful to be there. And I'm just like, God, like you designed this for me to be here, like and experiencing this, like just having that gratitude towards God and having that experience in the crowd is, yeah.
Yes. I had like a prophetic dream one time and I'll never forget it. I had this dream that I was literally at my home church back in Nashville and they were like leading worship and like everyone was like dancing and it was like a full on like worship, like just everyone was worshiping, but in the back it literally looked like a festival. Like people had glow
What the
toys, there was
heck?
hula hoops, there was live painters, there was all
So
the like
cool.
flow, and like I remember thinking like this has to be like some sort of like prophetic symbolism because this is crazy. It's out there, but it's like, dude, why are we limiting God? Like, you know, the ways that people connect to God.
First of all, Jesus turned water into wine. Let's start there. Second of all, he also hung.
Beatbox. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Jesus would turn water into beatboxes at festivals
have
now.
communion with beatboxes. That'd be lit.
Oh my God, I'm crying. This is so funny.
But yeah, no, there's so many signs. Even like the people that he hung out with, like the disciples, they were not the greatest of people. Like there's so many signs where it's like that's where I feel my connection and where I feel my purpose come in of like being in this industry is living a life that Jesus also kind of lived and like modeling my life after his, of like I can be with in this industry. It's not everyone, but there's a lot of darkness in this, and you can be with the darkness and still like almost be the leader of that and be the light in those situations. So
Yeah, that's how I've always viewed myself. And I feel like a lot of like my mom and dad understand, but I've never like seen myself like wanting to be like a worship leader. Like I've
yeah.
always known that I was going to exist in secular music. And like I
But
had
how do you
my
bring that
aunt.
into it? Like that's, yeah, if that's part of you, you can easily like, even like for you being a songwriter, you can write music about it or however you want it,
Yeah.
however that wants to show up in your particular
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
yeah, so my like family like didn't understand like not that I am like very close to my mom's side of the family. We do not talk now, especially. But they were just like, why don't you sing songs for the Lord? And it's like literally I do. Like
Yeah,
literally I'm
right.
literally so freaking like writing my songs from my heart. Like what do you think I'm doing? Like I don't know. I just feel like
Yeah,
yeah,
just because
I
it's not a biblical song doesn't mean that the expression isn't the same and isn't for the same purpose.
my faith like I'm witchy, like I love Jesus and I do tarot and I love crystals, so like I don't fit into a box, but like literally like I'm not writing music for people who like I'm writing music for people who need healing. Jesus didn't come for the people who were like good. He came for
That's what I
the
was
people
trying
who
to
are
get
in
to
their
earlier.
fucking mess. He came for the people who are in their fucking the shittiest moments of their life, who wanted to people who were like about to get stoned to death, people who committed adultery, people who were drunks, like people who were messy, but like that's where the biggest miracles happen.
Yep.
Like the
Yep.
biggest healing and breakthroughs happen in those moments. And like I'm here to write music for people who are in the fucking trenches who need a fucking breakthrough. Like that's who I'm that's who I'm going after, and sometimes that's me. Sometimes I write
Yeah.
songs that
Yeah.
I need healing. So anyways, that can happen through whatever music you're called to do, but like I know like I am meant to be in the genre.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Did you ever feel like there was a resistance there because of your belief or because of maybe, as we've both discussed earlier, afraid of judgment, maybe even afraid of judgment from your parents? Because I know for me that was a hurdle of like,
And
oh yeah, I want to be an EDM. They're like, wait, you want to do what? Are you sure?
yeah,
Drugs, alcohol, like I don't know about that.
yeah, never from my parents. My dad used to be like my dad's a rocker. He did his own
Oh, okay.
band stuff. My mom's like a singer songwriter. Like they know my heart. They know I'm good. But like I knew like from my churches, like church, like again, grew up in the rural South, so they're like, what the fuck? Like I bet people still on my Facebook are like, oh my god, she's got her ass out at Lost Lands. So I've always like had a little bit of a rebellious, you could say, streak in me where it's like I'm like fuck the system, like I'm gonna
Yeah.
do things my way. So like I never really had like full on like reservations in being myself. I'm kind of like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, but I'm aware of it, and like obviously there's like a little bit of anxiety there, but like nothing to ever stop me from doing what I want to do,
Yeah.
which is achieving my dreams. I've always
That's dope.
been, I guess, kind of rebellious in that way.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you you brought up, some of your other spiritual practices outside of like the non-denominational Christian stuff that you grew up around and, still believe in and whatnot. But what are the other things that you kind of practice in your spirituality outside of that?
I'm always learning. I'm a very like curious person. I'm always wanting to learn more about myself and the world. And so any way I can connect to God, whether that's through music,
Yeah.
secular, or sometimes listening to worship music. Sometimes it's just getting in nature. Sometimes it's meditating. Sometimes it's spending time with animals. Sometimes it's tarot. Sometimes
Mm.
it's, I got oracle cards. It's honestly like, I feel like I've really learned a lot about myself through astrology and just like understanding myself more and the people around me. So those are like a few different things that I incorporate into my own life that have really helped me personally.
That's interesting. I've had some experiences with was it
Tarot, yeah.
tarot, yeah. And I don't know, being a Christian, like they don't really talk about that kind of stuff. So how do you find that you connect through that?
So I do feel like for me, because I know that when I'm tapping in to source or God, like I know, like I'm asking God himself, like if God can make
Yeah.
like rocks cry out in the Bible, like God is like, we're all energetic beings. God can always manipulate energy and get you signs in different
Yeah, yeah,
ways.
yeah.
So
So you're using it as like a tool, I guess.
yeah, I use it as a
Yeah, yeah.
tool. Like but I'm very like intentional, with what I'm
Right, right.
tapping into because like, when I was younger, like a teenage, like a preteen, I don't know. I think God was protecting me because I started like getting into like really weird dark energy. There's just something very fascinating in it that like pulled it towards me, and like, I wanted to mess with my friend's Ouija board.
So interesting that you have experience with that, because we'll talk off camera because I don't want to bring it up to the public. But
Yeah, it's okay.
in my childhood, I have something. I have a step parent that kind of went through a similar experience like that and went full out like into it, and like, yeah, it was very scary for me to experience as a young kid.
Yeah, I mean, there's dark energy there, and you definitely have to be very, very intentional when you're tapping into stuff, because people think that it's like all fun and games, and it's like, no, you're really fucking messing with real
playing
energy.
With the devil.
Yeah, and so
not necessarily the devil, but potentially that. Both sides, you're just tapping more deeply into spirituality, but
and it's not a
can
game.
Bring up dark stuff too. Yeah,
right. So like after that, like I just had a really weird paranormal experience that was really traumatizing when I was like 14, 15. And like it scared the living shit out of me. But it was literally like I felt like it was a wake up call, because it was like, don't mess with this stuff. Like it's real. So like ever since then, like I remember having a conversation with my mom that day, and she was like this stuff can only get to you if you give it permission.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I am, practicing things such as tarot, like, I don't have any fear anymore with anything like paranormal, because like I know I'm divinely protected, and I know I'm like tapping into God, and like I don't allow like that kind of negative energy into my life.
I definitely agree. I agree with the intention portion of it. Like you got to set your intention.
Intention is so important. Like, I wouldn't really recommend it to people who just think it's like fun and games. Like I'm pretty deep into my like spiritual walk, but like people just think it's fun and silly, and like it's actually very serious. So just intention is everything. Really understanding what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to waste too much of your time. I want to wrap up here.
Oh, you're good.
I know it's you're a trooper. We started this. It's 9:30 my time. You're 3 hours ahead of me. You're on the East Coast, so it's very late for you. So I want to thank you for giving me your time.
Yeah, I'm so glad we could do this.
Yeah, I guess the last question to wrap up that idea of what we were just, spirituality and stuff. Why do you think the industry doesn't have? I feel like the more that I'm authentically me, I'm attracting the people that also have that aspect about them, and they're very spiritual people. But on the general grand scheme of things, it's not really a thing that's talked about too much. It's not really a thing that's out there. It's not really even related most of the time with the EDM world or culture. Why do you think that is? And if you were to take a guess, and it doesn't have to be accurate, but what, in your opinion on that?
I feel like God isn't really brought up in anything in the entertainment industry at all. Like,
except for country music.
Yeah, except for country. God bless this town. Yeah. I honestly, first and foremost, this industry is a dark place. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like,
yeah.
And it's all this concept. This concept is always so interesting to me, because if you want to bring it back to like biblical knowledge, it's like Satan was technically the leader of all of the angels in the music realm. What was he, like the choir leader or something musical? He was like the most musical angel. Like I'm not wording this perfectly, but he was like the leader of all the music stuff. So it's like music to me is the closest and one of the most powerful ways to connect to God.
Absolutely.
So it only makes sense that there's so much spiritual warfare.
Yep.
Regarding music. Like it's interesting where you have, and I'm not saying don't go do drugs, but also don't go do drugs. Right. It's like, it's like be responsible, but like also be realistic, like it's like, you have a place of healing, but you also have a lot of place of darkness where maybe people are masking drug addictions by going to shows every single weekend and, masking these problems, or,
But a lot of the times, the things that people are taking at festivals can also be used in a medical sense or in a spiritual sense or in like a spiritual practice. So
exactly.
It's like,
I'm not saying don't do shrooms.
Back to our intention of setting your intention for these things.
Yeah,
that's why intention is so important. Yeah.
I mean, I've had a lot of good revelations spiritually doing shrooms. So I'm not saying.
So have I.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, you know, there's clearly the intention is truly the thing where it's like, okay, are you doing this to get closer to God? Or are you doing this to escape?
I've heard stories of people who I'm actually somewhat close with who, like, their marriage got saved because they started going to festivals and raving and got involved in the culture. Like,
yeah, I mean, music saves our lives. Like, I don't think I would be here. And I know many people wouldn't be here without music.
Right.
I know a lot of people have, you know, said like, hey, this song has like saved my life. This song saved my life. So I feel like, you know, it's partially just like, I think religion has been the biggest like damager, you could say, of like skewing people's perception of like what God truly is, which is love and light and plur and you know, all of these really amazing things. And I feel like religion has just really turned a lot of people off from even wanting to talk about it because it's like immediately assumed negatively.
I think a lot of churches weaponize it too and like use fear as a tactic when it's really not about that.
Yeah, which is so interesting because it's like that is literally the lowest vibration possible is fear. So yeah, I just think it's partially like people like, I don't know, just entertainment industry just tends to be a dark place in general, but I think like it's not talked about because there's still like a lot of stigma around just having any sort of faith-based practice, period, because of the way religion has kind of tainted it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, thank you so much for answering that very complex question. I didn't mean to make it over complex.
It's good. I'm like, damn. I'm like, wait. I don't want anyone to cancel me. I'm like, I'm make sure I'm saying this correctly.
That's what's hard about talking about topics like this too. It's like to a certain degree, like for me, it's like I have to be fearless about it because it's something that I very much feel like I'm called to do. But also, it's like I don't want to disrespect anyone. I don't want to turn anyone off to the idea because that's really not what I'm trying to do. Like I'm not trying to shame anyone. Like all the same shit that people would think about, like judging themselves for the darkness in the industry. I've gotten caught up in that just as much as anyone else has. So I'm just here to, you know, make things right for myself, set the best example that I can for myself, and I'm sure you're here to do the same. So it's a touchy subject, so it's hard to kind of got to tread lightly sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like, please don't. Books do not come for me. Right? Y'all do you.
Yeah, and I'm not here to judge people. If you want to live your life the way you want to live it, again, God judges you, not me. So I'm going to stay out of that. That's not my job.
See, my thing is, it's like God doesn't even judge you. It's like
and that's,
God like, loves you. And it's like literally like all of our choices, I feel like we're all like little inner children who have things we're going through from like childhood where we're just trying to do our best, you know? And like
I heard
unconditional love is the most healing thing, which is God.
Yeah. I heard the other day that like, especially in today's culture, like we spend our whole lives, most of us spend our whole lives like trying to reprogram or trying to like heal some part of us that's not even our fault.
Literally my whole life.
Yeah.
Literally my entire existence. Yeah.
But anyways, we are getting very close to time. So before we wrap up, what are you looking forward to most? I know you're traveling around a bunch. I know you got a bunch of plans coming up in the near future, but is there anything that you're like in the next year or maybe in the next 5 years that you're really looking forward to making happen or is already scheduled that you can give away?
Well, I think the thing that I am most excited about right now is I'm going to EDC Las Vegas for my first time ever.
Woo!
I just got confirmed and I'm going to do some guest performances.
Let's go.
So that is definitely like the thing that is just like on the forefront center of my mind right now. I mean, next 1 to 5 years, I can't wait to continue to grow, play more festivals, have bigger and bigger collabs. I already have quite a few bigger collabs in the works.
I've heard about some of them, and I'm not going to spoil for you, but your career is going to be in a much different spot in 5 years if you keep up what you're doing. So
yes, I'm very confident.
I asked this last one at the end of every single interview. There's one piece of advice that you could tell yourself when you first decided to make music your career. What would it be? What would the advice be to your younger self?
to always remember the childlike wonder that made you fall in love with music in the first place. I feel like keeping that at the forefront of every day, especially when the more you start to want to make music your career, you have to start thinking business minded. And like I said, the music industry can be a very dark place. There's a lot of sleazy people, there's a lot of bad deals, and there's a lot of, mean people online.
And it's just simply hard.
It's just hard,
Like
it's
compared
just
to
hard.
in many other industries, like they'll get a desk job or something. Like comparatively, like it's probably one of the most rewarding. But to get in and become successful, it's probably one of the most challenging too. So
yeah, there's a lot of burnout. A lot of sacrifices you have to make, and so if you really want to do this as your full-time thing all the way to the top, you really do have to stay true to yourself. One, no matter what stay true to yourself no matter what the industry might look like, because the world needs you. And like you said, God made you exactly who you're supposed to be for a reason. So like, if you know in your heart that your purpose is to be an artist, who you are is that way for a reason. And like, even if the industry, like, let's say you make a genre that's not even popular right now, well, in like 2 years, it might be the thing that completely blows up, but you have no idea. But maybe because you're scared right now in the moment to make that genre, you're holding yourself back from actually, being at the right place at the right time to blow up. So staying true to yourself and just always, finding those reasons to stay connected to why you fell in love with music in the first place is what's going to keep you grounded. Like, there's so many times I wanted to quit in the past year, and one thing that I have loved more than anything that's helped me stay inspired creatively is just getting out in the crowd like a fan again. Like I was, 14 at a music festival, just listening to my favorite music. Oh, it's so healing to your soul. Yeah, it's so good.
It gets harder and harder as you become more famous and more famous, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like fun to network a little bit, but you're like, I just want this experience,
Yeah.
So that's my answer.
I've ran into that similar issue too, where like even that like Lost Land, for a good example, is like probably one of my favorite. Yeah, I see the most people throughout the year that I have on my show. I connect with the most people that I talk through it throughout the year. Like it's just like the giant homecoming, I feel like, is always Lost Lands.
Oh, yeah.
And the more I go, the less, I don't know, like I want, there are especially, specific people that I want to see. But the more and more that I go, I'm just like, I just want to spend time with my friends. I want to be in the moment. I want to experience just being here, enjoy my vacation and this time here. Like, I don't want to be running around meeting a bunch of people. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it's a balance for sure, but you gotta have it. You gotta have it.
And then last question, you can just first 3 people that come to mind. Who would you like to see on this show after you?
You did Emma. You did Nick already.
Yeah.
He's
been on the show twice, actually. He's one of the very few people that's been on the show twice, yeah.
Yes. Let me think about this. Like anybody?
Literally anyone.
I mean, have you had Lizzie Jane on here yet?
Yes, yeah.
Actually,
I would love to have her back, though, so I'll count that.
Who are like 3 artists I really love right now that are like kind of starting to blow up? You know who I love is this artist. I'm probably butchering her name, but Dino Shadix. I feel like she is so underrated.
Yeah.
She's one of my favorite producers right now. Literally, like I'm probably like I seem like a fangirl to her. I like love her music. Like I put multiple songs of hers in my set, like every single set. Like I'm like, how are you not more famous? Like she is so underrated. Like she is a diamond that's hidden. Like I can't believe I'm like y'all sleeping on her.
We'll get her on the Underground Society podcast.
Yes. Other 2 artists. Gosh, I would really have to think about this.
Just give me one more.
I'll get back to one more. Okay. I mean, I love my girl Bella Renee. That's one of my really good friends, and I really love what she's doing.
I've also had her. She's dope.
You have? Oh my God. Okay, well, see, We think alike then. We both know we both know the legends. We should A&R together.
Right? We should. I'm down whenever.
Gosh, oh my God. Well, Danny King then. Danny King or my girl Gracie Van Brunt. They're both like really incredible vocalists, but they also do so much for the electronic music community in general.
King. Yep.
Yeah, her definitely.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I know it's late, so I will let you get off this call. But yeah, thank you so much for joining the podcast and making this happen. I really appreciate you squeezing me in your very hectic, busy schedule.
Oh, no, I love this. Thank you so much for having me.